Welcome to the Age-Friendly Dayton podcast. This is a program showcasing insights and fascinating stories about the many age-friendly achievements happening in Dayton. Please welcome your host, Age-Friendly Dayton champion Donna Kastner and producer Terry O'Brien.
All right. Donna, I'm doing my Matthew McConaughey impersonation.
I love it.
Episode number 6, right here, right now, Donna.
Right here, right now. And our theme today, Terry, is the transition from traditional work to retirement.
What are we calling that?
Kind of the retirement segue.
Retirement segue.
I don't know. It's just that it's the whole move. When do I retire? How do I retire? What am I going to do in retirement?
So this is for people who are getting close, or maybe have already passed and now they're retired, but they're kind of not sure what to do. Is that what we're trying to figure out?
A little bit. That transition can be jarring, especially if a lot of what you're doing all this thing full throttle in a full-time job.
Right.
And when it stops on a dime, it can be jarring.
I guarantee you it would be jarring. If you had to get up and not know what to do, it would be very jarring.
Yeah.
So what's your suggestions for folks?
Well, first of all, I want to, there's some incredible research going on, and everybody makes their decision on when to retire with different factors in mind, okay?
Usually it's financial, isn't it?
Yeah, I can retire once this happens. In fact, retirement, 65 was the magical age we thought about for years. Now it's closer to 67, and quite frankly, Social Security, that finish line got pushed back. So now the finish line that's thought traditionally is somewhere in your 67-ish stage, maybe 70. But I guess the bottom line, when do you retire? It looks different, and it's a different timing for each individual, and it is financially driven. It is here's another thought. If the work you do is drudgery, you're going to be looking to retire sooner. If the work that you do you enjoy, maybe you want to start to dial it down some.
Yep.
That's a wonderful transition point into an encore chapter where maybe you're staying engaged, but in a very flexible capacity.
And that the guest that we have on today, I've heard a lot about in the Centerville area. I've heard his name hundreds of times, and he is like the poster child for what to do after retirement. Is that correct?
He totally is. And those of you out there, Mike Bevis, I mean, people know him for so many different things. And he has been my mentor around this whole work and volunteerism in retirement, what this next chapter looks like. So he's going to be joining us in just a bit. But it's really interesting even watching him and his segue. I mean, he models some really good thoughts on what to do in this next life chapter.
Well, back when we were kids, we were watching The Honeymooners, and Ralph Cramden would walk in with this lunchbox, and Alice. You could picture
to the moon, Alice.
He was driving a bus. He was probably thinking, I can retire in 20 years. But a lot of people really enjoy their work.
Yeah.
They really enjoy what they do.
Yeah.
And they don't want to give it up, even though they're reaching the age of 62, 65, 67.
And that's a great point, Terry. So for those people that just found joy, there were joyful moments, maybe not all the time.
Right.
It's a segue. It's a very interesting transition. For others that it was physically taxing and there were things going on that weren't enjoyable, it might be an opportunity to do something new. What we do know and what the research tells us is stopping abruptly and not doing anything. I mean, aside from leisure, and leisure's fun, don't get me wrong, but not having a purpose and a mission, that can have negative impact on health, longevity, happiness.
You want the quickest way to the grave? Be bored.
Be bored. Watch the next, Law and Order rerun, right?
Oh, yeah. I cannot stand being bored. I got to do something all the time. And
keep in mind, with all that's going on, there's a lot of economic turbulence going on. And now that I'm reading, research says that almost half of people retire sooner than they plan to. It might have been a layoff. I do believe that older workers typically are higher compensated and often are targets for layoffs.
Absolutely. But isn't there which is a great segue into bringing our guest here in a minute, isn't it a great story that these older workers have all the knowledge, wisdom, and skill, but because it costs so much, maybe if you can get them at a part-time rate or something like that, but you can rely on their knowledge, it's going to really help your business out.
Yes, and that's exactly the conversation we're going to be having with Mike. And I do think it's like, so understanding, first of all, understand what are your superpowers. Okay, you did a lot of things. What are the things you did really well? And are they in demand? And then how do I connect with employers that are seeking this? So that, in a nutshell, is going to be our interview in a moment.
All right, well, in that case, why don't we take a quick break and we'll come back with Mike. All right, we'll be right back, folks.
Thanks to the Mar Encore Fellows initiative at the Dayton Foundation for making this Age-Friendly Dayton podcast possible. Since 2017, the Dayton Foundation has deployed numerous highly skilled older adults into the community to work as Mar Encore Fellows to help communities solve problems and create new opportunities. Thank you again to the Dayton Foundation for making this Age-Friendly Dayton podcast possible.
Hey, Donna, welcome back. We're back here, and I'm so excited to hear the story of this next guy. He, in our area, Centerville, Washington Township, he's like a legend. Everywhere I go, every meeting I go, I hear his name. So why don't you tell the folks out there who we have sitting across from you?
Terry, you're right. A true legend and an incredible go-giver. Mike Bevis is joining us today. We're going to focus on employment and civic engagement within the context of retirement. And thank you, John Sullivan, if you're out there listening, because you don't meet people. Usually it's the introductions, and John introduced me to Mike, and Mike's been wonderful as far as helping me get up to speed on a few things. Welcome, Mike Bevis.
Thank you, Donna. I think I'm in trouble already.
You're in trouble, Mike.
Trouble. Hey, why don't we just start off with, tell us a little bit more about you, your background, and kind of what led to the things you're doing today.
Great. Well, thanks, Donna. I appreciate that, and it's nice to be with you and share some things. Just pretty simple background. I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, and then went to Miami University and ended up spending 3 years in the Navy, which was quite interesting. It was like getting a haircut and seeing the world. So it was during the Vietnam War. And then I came back to Centerville and fell into a job with Huffy Bicycles. And I was fortunate to be hired in during what was called the bicycle boom. Huffy at the time was very small. They were probably maybe 80 million at that time. And they was like number 7, number 8 in the industry, and within about 4, 5, 6, 7 years, we took it to number 1 in the industry. So I spent 24 years with Huffy. As I said, very fortunate. Following that, I had a career in the barcode industry, mostly with Avery Dennison for about 4 or 5 years, and then ran a company in Beaver Creek called Edict Systems, and Edict is involved in EDI, electronic data interchange. And so everything that you buy at the store has a barcode on it. It's scanned. And as you were saying, you just came from a grocery store, so they scan it. They scan your loyalty card. They know who you are. They know what you buy.
They know a lot.
They know all. So it's all through electronic data. And then about I guess it's now 16 years ago, I started a company called Strategic Sales and Marketing Partners. And I call myself a time-shared exec, and I help small and medium-sized companies run their business when they're too busy running their business. I take things off their table, off their plate, off their inbox, and I'm kind of a consultant on speed. Many times consultants will listen to you. They will give you a report, take your check, and they're gone. And I come in every week or every other week to make sure that you are doing that. Yesterday, I spent some time with a gentleman who is a CEO of a company, and he wants to retire in 5 years. And he doesn't know how to get there, and he's kind of freaked out about what's going to happen in 5 years and who's going to run the company and what's he going to do with his life at that time. So I'm going to help him. We'll meet probably monthly for the next 5 years, assuming both of us are still around, to kind of help glide him into that and do it through, I guess, actually talking about what's his dream for 5 years out and how do we turn that dream into a plan. So that's what I help my clients do.
So,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, that's a fascinating story, right? Would you mind saying your age just so we know?
Oh, yeah. I'll be 76 next month.
So at the age of 60, 15 years ago, you decided, I'm going to start another company.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So why wasn't retirement appealing to you? Why wasn't sitting back and fishing and watching Andy Griffith reruns exciting to you?
Well, I'm not a big TV watcher, I guess, is one thing. The other thing is that my dad retired way too early, retired in his 60s, and he got bored. And I will fish occasionally with my brothers.
Yeah.
Actually, in the spring, we went about 5 hours north of Toronto and did some fishing. And I think the people from Labatt's and Molson's were happy to see us come back home. But I was when I was working in the edict systems, I had a client of mine tell me that he loved working in his shop and making parts, but he hated running his company. He didn't want to hire people, didn't know how to hire people, had no strategic plan, didn't know who his customers were. His advertising at that time was basically through Yellow Pages. I fell off my chair. So I let him work in the shop, and I helped him run his company. And we did that together for about, 6 or 7 years. But he just didn't want to get away from his CNC machine. He wanted somebody else to help him run his company.
That's crazy.
I love the way Mike frames this as a time-shared executive. So essentially, and so for our listeners out there that are thinking about this graceful segue, you're on retainer per se, and under certain, like we're going to get together once a month or once a week or what have you, whatever the terms are. And I love also, you're right, consultants come in and help. They help companies solve complex issues, but if you don't stick around, they're going to slide right back into their old ways and that ongoing involvement.
That's exactly right. There are certain things that small companies don't like to do. They struggle with hiring people. How do you find the right people? They really struggle with firing people, and because their heart can't handle it, I think.
Yeah.
And so I've helped companies actually terminate people by working with them for 3 or 4 months or so, and getting them to understand, are you really in the right market? Are you really in the right job? Have you considered updating your resume and maybe moving to another company or another position? So yes, I mostly work on an hourly basis, but I have set times. Like today, I'm with a manufacturing company from around 1 o'clock, and I'll probably work with them till about 3:30. Another company I'll be with from probably about 4 till about 5:30. So I have set times that I work with different companies.
But what do you, when you're in that room with that company you're talking to from 1 to 3:30, is there anything off the table? Are you basically focused on accounting? Are you basically focused on marketing? What is the areas you're trying to focus on?
It's a mixture. I think the first thing is I will ask an owner of a company, what keeps you awake at night? And the gentleman I was working with, as I said last night, who wants to retire in 5 years, he said there just are so many problems that I just don't know how to face them. So the first thing I say is that what keeps you awake at night, and we list those. The second thing is what sits on your desk that you don't get completed. Tell me about your sales plan, your marketing plan, your strategic plan. And a lot of small companies don't do that, and that's one thing that we talked about through Aileron. Is Aileron does help small companies operate like big companies. So we do that, and then the next thing is like, where do you want to go? Many companies are struggling with their sales are flat, their sales are declining, they don't know who their customers are. So we'll sit through, I have a list of about 30 different questions that I use that I call kind of, just to try to understand what is the health of the company. Kind of like talking to your doctor. What hurts you today? What bothers you? Why are you here to see me? And I go through those, and then I will tailor those with each company. Then we talk about, okay, so what can we accomplish in a month? What can we accomplish in 6 months or a year? A lot of it, though, is sales-oriented, sales compensation, sales quotas. Who do you call on? For example, if 100% of your business is with Honda, have you considered selling Toyota? Have you thought about selling Subaru? And many times people are so focused with one current customer that they can't think beyond that. So I help them try to expand their horizons too, and think and kind of think beyond that as to where they want to go. And I think the main thing is really growing. If you want to grow your company, then you'll come to me. And I will admit, at the beginning, when I do work with companies that are struggling with their salespeople, the salespeople in the first week or two, they will not like me. They think I'm there to fire them. But then after a couple of weeks, they realize I'm there to help them grow and expand. I helped one company that was paying 5 salespeople a salary and no commission, but the business was going nowhere. So we cut their salary, and we put them on a half salary and then half commission. If they have the same sales this year that they had last year, they'll make about the same amount. But if they sell more, they'll make more. And of course, if they sell less, they'll make less.
All right. So, Mike, I want to make sure, because we're talking about Encore life change. Like, this is your second act kind of thing.
Third act, really, when you think about
it. Actually, yeah, based on what he went through.
Yep.
If this is your second or third act for somebody listening out there, let's just listen to you for a few minutes. This is your passion.
Yep.
This is what you love to do, right? Do you have anything outside of this? Like, are you a golfer? Do you ever enjoy doing things like that the normal retirement guy would do?
I don't know what a normal retirement guy is, but I have some passions. The first thing when I started my company, I thought, well, I'll work 4 days a week and then play golf on Friday.
Yeah.
And of course, my longest and largest customer ended up wanting to see me every Friday as we ran the sales meetings for his sales force. So I do play golf occasionally. I probably get out a couple times a month, not as much as I would like. My goal with golf is to not hurt myself and not break any windows or things like that. But I will play socially.
But you're not doing all these things for money, right? I get the sense that you're doing this because you love to do this.
It also gives me time to volunteer, and we'll talk, I think, a little bit more about that. But I think giving back, I think, through the volunteer side, I think is important to me too. So
and I want to jump in, because really there is a crossroads. You kind of have some choices as you're moving into this stage of life. And some people, it's work and it's income generating assignments. For others, it's volunteerism. Mike, what I just love in watching him is he has what I see as an ideal blend of work and altruistic activities that supports the community. But let me step back. I watch you in these timeshared executive gigs, and you're at a high level guiding companies. If our listeners are out there, maybe they were that mid-level professional, and I think of, what is it, When Harry Met Sally? I'll have what Mike's having.
Oh, yeah.
If they want to do this, like, what are your tips? What's your advice? Because maybe they're just near the end of their traditional work world, and how do they make that transition?
Well, there's a couple things. I think when I first started thinking about doing this, I came across a company which I don't think is here anymore. They were called Interim America, and Interim America is or at least was a company kind of like a temp agency, but for senior level executives. And I found that they did some things like, let's say you're merging two companies and you want to try to determine which people to keep and which ones not to keep. Or if your vice president of marketing was out having a hip replaced or maybe having a baby or things like that, they would send someone in and do the job. So I liked that concept of this interim management type of a position. And then I came across an article, which I probably still carry with me somewhere, called Super Temps. It talks about people in their upper 50s, 60s that maybe want to spend more time with their grandchildren. Maybe they do want to play golf more. Maybe they do want to fish more. Maybe they want to travel more. At least I heard a story yesterday that when people retire, they normally wait until they're in their 80s or 90s to start eating down their 401ks, and that's too late to travel. You're better off to travel, in your 60s or in your upper 50s or in your 70s. And we just came back actually from a 10-day trip to Germany during over the Christmas season. We visited all the German Christmas markets, and so we got away to do that. So I think that kind of propelled me on my way to say that, I could do this on a part-time job. And actually, I've been busier with this company and this position than I really thought I would be.
So how do you get out of that, right?
Yeah, how do you...
Because you have a runway. We all have a runway. How do you know when's the right time to say, okay, this really is time to...
I think probably there might be a couple ways to do that. The first thing is that I think I've learned how to fire a customer. If a customer's not listening to me, but they're still paying me, I get the feeling that I'm wasting my time and wasting their money. So it's time, and sometimes you get customers to a certain position that it's time to move on. And sometimes you're not sure whether you are... whether you are a crutch to a customer, or maybe you are drugs to a customer, or a crutch. But there are times that you have to move on. So how do you get out of this? Well, probably there's be some time when I probably will not have as many customers as I have today. I have 5 or 6, and some gigs will run 6 months or 9 months, but one of my gigs ran 11 years.
Yeah.
So when it would, I think, wane, when it would go down to only having a couple customers, but then again, about the time you think, like when COVID came, it was tough to keep up with customers. You use Zoom a lot of meetings on phones and things like that. But and I lost a couple customers during COVID, and I built back most of them. But I was meeting with a friend last Friday, and he said, one of the companies I help is a company in Boston. They're an auto parts company, and they said they're just kind of dead. Do you think would you be willing to go to Boston to help somebody? I said, sure, I'll go anywhere, without a doubt. So I think if I would get down to the point that I would have 1 or 2 customers, it would be time to probably say enough already. I've often thought also, and I've tried, I haven't been successful, but to bring on somebody younger than me, someone 10, 12, 15 years younger than me, who could start taking over some of my smaller accounts, learn, I could phase out a little bit. We could share some customers, and I've done that. That's why I called my company Strategic Sales and Marketing Partners, because I have a partner who can do creative for me. I have a partner who can smile and dial and do phone calls. I have a person that can help me with compensation. So I don't do everything myself. I have these partners that help me.
And that connects to this whole concept of having a strong network you can call on. I mean, again, Mike's mastering that. And Mike, you're not just so you've got the work side where you're the executive supporting a half a dozen companies, but you're also kind of spanning the generations locally and bringing them together as people that are moving through their own careers. Tell us. You're going to love this, Terry. He's got a group called the Panarians.
The Panarians.
Tell us about the Panarians.
I think I have all your albums, by the way.
Well, I think it was during the recession, maybe 2008 or 2009. There were 4 of us together. I think probably having coffee at Panera, probably the one that was by the Dayton Mall at that time. And a lot of people were out of work. And so each of us started bringing people in to say, how can we help you? And we started helping people with ideas with how to do a resume and how to reach out and find a new job. And I mean, people were freaked out. There was a lot of head cuts back then. And so we got to the point.
And largely older adults.
Exactly right. Yes. And so then what we did was we started we went from like 4, 5, 6, 8 people to like 40 people in these meetings. We were meeting every other Monday. And then Panera kicked us out because we were over the fire department's limits. And we moved to, at that time, a restaurant in the south side of Centerville, which was called Beef O'Brady's at that time. They let us use the facility, and we would have over 100 people. There was even articles written about us in the Dayton paper. And I think at that time, I'm not sure we were called the Panarians. I don't know how that word came about, but today, now 16 years later, we still meet. We have
bright and early
on every other Monday morning from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. And we meet on Zoom, because then we can include people from Colorado. We can include people from the Carolinas. So we've helped people from all over.
And this is all done at no cost. You're not charging anybody
all
for
done
this?
at no cost.
Okay.
We have our own website that we maintain. And we have a couple, I don't do it by myself. We have a couple HR specialists who do, and a couple other consultants. But last Monday, we had 19 people on the Zoom call, all of them looking for jobs.
Wow. So, which gets me to, you did this for no cost, right? Which means your heart's in the right place. Can we talk a little bit about volunteerism, what you're doing? Because this is where I heard your name so much. You're on the Optimist Committee. You're on...
He's on boards, advisory boards left and right. And in fact, we had Kate Bostorff here on an earlier episode for Age-Friendly Centerville, and you're part of that advisory board in addition to many more. Advisory boards, that's an interesting role. It's not for everyone. How does that come about? If people are listening in, gosh, I'd like to do that. How do those happen?
Well, I don't think there's a line that say, get in this line to be on an advisory board. I think you have to kind of follow your heart and follow your passion. when we moved back to the Dayton area back in '89, my nephew came to me and said, "Uncle Mike, would you help coach my basketball team at the YMCA?" So I haven't played competitive basketball since I was a sophomore in high school. But I said, sure, I'll come and help. And so I coached for a year or two, and the director of the Y came over to me and said, "I need your help." And I kind of reached for my wallet thinking he needed a donation. And he said, "I need somebody on our board to help kind of get us more spirited and move us to another level." So I served on the YMCA board for a while, basically the YMCA that is in Kettering. And then I moved up to the YMCA board of Greater Dayton, where they have, I don't know how many Ys they have now, 13, 14, 15 Ys. In fact, I think they just opened a new one, if I remember right. Anyway, so I kind of followed my heart in that area. Terry, as you and I talked about, I had been on the Rails to Trails board years before that, helping develop the bike paths along the Little Miami River. So, working for Huffy, but I had been a cyclist, for exercise before I helped Rails to Trails. But I think the first thing that I kind of thought about is that how do I give back somewhat? I had a boss at Huffy. He said, well, your life should be divided into three parts. It should be the first part of your life you learn, the next part of your life you earn, and the third part of your life you should give back. And so I think by learning from the YMCA, and then I was asked to, since I was been involved quite for a long time with Miami University, they have an alumni board, and I've been on that alumni board twice, which is quite interesting. And then I also worked with a student foundation at Miami too, and so I've helped I've helped the kids there. So I think mentoring youth then kind of got me on that path, and then that path then led me to join the Centerville and Optimist Club. I just celebrated my 22nd anniversary there.
Wow!
But Optimists are friends of youth, and they have youth programs, a basketball program, a soccer program, a fishing derby, a bicycle rodeo, a haunted trail, an Easter egg hunt. And so anything to really help our youth live in a community that's a better place to live and work and play. So
where do you find the time? I mean, I'm listening to you. I'm exhausted listening to how much stuff you do. Where do you find the time?
I have to segment. I think I have to put up my partitions and say, okay, this is my work time. Like our lunch for Centerville and Optimist is every Tuesday at Yankee Trace from 12 to 1. Everybody eats lunch. So I'm there 11:30, 11:45. Now, I'm also involved in helping run our golf outing, which we've had 32 years of having this golf outing.
Mike Kellerman, the Officer Kellerman Fund, or is that
no, that's a separate one. But John and Paula Kellerman are they're members of our club.
Okay.
Actually, unfortunately, John's in the hospital right now with some heart problems, so we've kept him in our prayers. But this is the Centerville and Optimist TR for Youth, and so I've kept involved in a lot of activities in Centerville Noon Optimist Club.
So takeaways that I'm hearing, okay, heart, that kept coming up. You know that there are things you care about, and it actually starts with rolling up your sleeves and volunteering. You're not going to be in this prestigious role. It's not even your design. Just get in there and pitch in on things that you care about.
Right.
And in the context, the people you meet are amazing, and then they watch you in action, and then, hey, can you help us with that? Can you help us with this? You just really make that look effortless.
Well, people say they don't know how to get started in volunteering.
Yeah, how do you do that?
And most nonprofits have either a fundraising breakfast or a fundraising lunch or a golf outing, as we talked about. So all of them have some activities, and they welcome people to come. I've been going to the Daybreak breakfast for, 10 years, 12 years, and that's a breakfast. It doesn't cost anything to go. It's in November, and Daybreak is a shelter for homeless teens.
Right.
And so I've been involved in actually bringing other people with me to handle a table of 8 to 10 people, so they understand how important it is for our nonprofits such as Daybreak or such as Dayton Children's to be involved in the community.
So as we land this podcast, and again, I'm looking at the clock, it's kind
We're
of time.
flying high.
We're starting to kind of bring this thing in. Are there any last thoughts that you'd like to leave the people thinking about retiring, or who have retired and are maybe not happy with what they're doing? What would you tell those folks?
Well, first thing I would tell the people that you want to get out and not just network, but you want to connect. And people say, well, I don't know how to network. But if they make it out and try to network, but they're not sure how to connect. And it's just too easy just to say, hey, I need your help, without actually learning about what you can offer, how you can help them too. So there's plenty of work. I think our community runs on the nonprofits, whether it is at the Optimist Clubs, as we talked about, whether it is Rotary, whether it is helping Hannah's Treasure Chest,
right,
whether it is helping, you pick the nonprofits. There are many, many nonprofits that are out there, and they're looking for professionals who have the experience, I think, the willingness to help. And unfortunately, today, we found out that it's tough to get young people involved in volunteering. They're busy with families. Maybe they have a child that on Saturdays has, let's say they have soccer practice in the morning, maybe they have recital practice in the afternoon, and maybe that evening they're on a hockey team or something. So kids today are busy.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why I like to give back, because it's tough for us boomers to understand that kids today have a lot of stress.
Sure.
Whether it's the cell phone or whether it's the gaming or whether it's the pressure from what goes on with the kids. But there's so much need for us to help the youth of today. And it's easy for people to say, well, just suck it up and go on. It's not that easy.
I agree,
so there's
Mike.
a big need for that.
So I think this is a great place where we kind of land this podcast. But I can tell you right now, I could listen to you talk all day long. You've got so many great stories, and you're an inspiration to me, right? So, Donna, any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, there's so many different directions for Mike. So reach out to us to connect with Mike. Mike, is there any website or way that maybe listeners who are intrigued by what they heard might reach out to you directly?
Yeah, it's easy to find. I'm part of a consultants group, which is called the Sunrise Alliance. So if you would go to thesunrisealliance.com, you'd find my information there. That's probably the easiest way to find me.
And remember, people like Mike happen one small step at a time, right? So just take the next step and the next
Correct.
step, and in time you'll be amazed at where you are.
Well,
Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure, Donna and Terry. Thank you very much for allowing me to be on today.
Well, great. So we're going to hear a little word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Thanks to the Mar Encore Fellows initiative at the Dayton Foundation for making this age-friendly Dayton podcast possible. Since 2017, the Dayton Foundation has deployed numerous highly skilled older adults into the community to work as Mar Encore Fellows to help communities solve problems and create new opportunities. Thank you again to the Dayton Foundation for making this age-friendly Dayton podcast possible.
All right, folks, welcome back. Donna, I got to tell you, of all the people we've had down here, he is one of the most impressive people I've ever seen.
I got to tell you, too, that I agree. I mean, and it's this perfect blend of there's wisdom and insights born of experience.
Yep.
And then he's such a gracious person that is always leaning in to help others.
He's got more energy than me, you, and the rest of this neighborhood put together.
Yeah, he's an inspiration for aging beautifully.
Absolutely.
And I got to tell you, it's also, so we covered all these wisdom gems. Every time I sit down with Mike, I am so much smarter, and hopefully our listeners feel the same way. And let me share one more gem, because I know I'm preparing for this interview. One thing we didn't get to. If you're thinking about this next Encore chapter, maybe taking on some kind of part-time work assignments, don't forget your alumni chapters where you went to college.
Yeah.
Those people are so willing to help introduce open doors for you, but you got to know what you're looking for. So that's like one more tip.
The Flyer alumni.
Well, I do lean into the Flyers. Go Flyers. But, Jason Eckert, Career Services, they're doing, Hire a Flyer.
Yeah.
But there is so much support out there that maybe people don't know is out there. So go back to your alma mater.
It's a great idea.
Ask some questions.
So any last words of wisdom before we say so long?
We hope we're continuing to provide great insights. By the way, email me at donna@donnakastner.com if there's topics or experts you'd like Terry and I to explore in the future.
Are you wanting them to invite you for dinner over to their house?
Okay, that would be nice too. But basically, for now, the podcast, what do you want to see us do? We want your feedback, so please. And also, we need your help. Tell your friends. If you know of other people that might enjoy this podcast, we'd appreciate that word of mouth sharing.
All right, well, at that point, we're going to say so long. Donna, we'll see you again in a few weeks for the next version of this podcast.
Sounds good, Terry.
Bye, guys.